The darkness of space was silent when a single human ship appeared at the edge of the galaxy. It was small compared to the massive war cruisers of alien empires. Its metal body carried the scars of countless battles, its engines burned with a steady but tired glow, and its name was painted in faded letters: Resolute. No one in the galaxy had seen a human vessel in decades. Many believed humanity had been destroyed, scattered, or too weak to fight. But now, here it was, alone, arriving without warning. The alien observers in the system were the first to notice. Their sensors caught the strange human signature. They sent messages across the stars, whispering that a forgotten predator had returned. On distant planets, leaders watched the reports in disbelief. They remembered old stories about humans: dangerous, stubborn, impossible to defeat. Stories told of wars where empires tried to crush humanity, only to be dragged into long, bloody conflicts that cost more than they gained. The galaxy had grown peaceful without them, or so it thought. On the bridge of the Resolute, Captain Eric sat in silence. His face was marked by age and war, his eyes sharp as steel. Around him, his crew worked with discipline, but there was a tension in the air. They knew they were entering hostile territory. The galaxy did not welcome humans. To them, humans were trouble, chaos, and fury. But Eric had come with purpose. He had not crossed the void for peace. Something had been taken from humanity, and he was here to remind the galaxy that humans never forgot and never forgave. The ship moved deeper into the system. Alien fleets began to form at a distance, curious and cautious. They did not fire, not yet. They wanted to see what this lone human ship would do. They wanted to test its strength. From their view, one ship against entire armadas seemed laughable. What could a single vessel do? But those who knew human history trembled. A lone human ship was never just a ship. It was a message. It was a warning. Inside the ship, the crew remained quiet. They had heard the rumors too, that the galaxy believed humans were extinct. Some even said humanity had destroyed itself long ago in wars of fire and ruin. But the crew of the Resolute knew the truth. Humanity had survived in the shadows, building strength, waiting for the right moment to return. And now, that moment had come. Their mission was not simply survival. Their mission was vengeance. Eric leaned forward in his chair. His voice was calm, steady. "They are watching us," he said. "They think we are weak. They think one ship cannot matter. They have forgotten who we are. They will remember." The crew exchanged glances. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Every one of them had trained for this, lived for this. Humanity's enemies thought they were safe. That illusion was about to shatter. A transmission came from the alien fleet. The voice was smooth and mocking, translated into human tongue. "Human vessel, you are trespassing in protected space. Power down your engines and surrender. You have no chance against us." The crew waited for Eric's answer. He did not reply at once. He stared at the stars on the screen, then spoke with a voice that carried across the silence. "Tell them," he ordered his comms officer, "that humanity bows to no one. Tell them we are not here to surrender. Tell them we are here to remind the galaxy of fear." The message was sent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the alien fleet began to move, ships spreading like wings of steel, weapons locking onto the lone human vessel. They expected the Resolute to run, to beg, or to die quickly. But Eric did none of those things. He pressed his hand to the console, and the old ship came alive with fire. Hidden weapons unfolded from the ship's sides. Energy shields flared to life. Missiles armed with old human warheads lit up the void. The aliens hesitated, shocked that this old ship still carried such power. But it was too late. The first volley of human fury roared into the black. Explosions tore across the alien formation. Ships that had stood for centuries were reduced to burning wreckage in seconds. The aliens fired back, but the Resolute danced through the chaos, faster than it should have been, stronger than they imagined. Every strike it delivered was precise, merciless. The crew fought without hesitation, their faces hard with determination. They knew there was no turning back. The galaxy was watching. Every empire, every world, every leader saw the broadcast of that battle. A lone human ship, outnumbered, surrounded, outgunned, and yet, it did not fall. Instead, it burned through the enemy like a blade of vengeance. And with every alien ship that exploded, the galaxy remembered the old stories. They remembered why humans had been feared. They remembered that a single human ship could shake an empire. When the smoke cleared, dozens of alien ships drifted as wrecks, and the Resolute still stood, scarred but unbroken. Captain Eric rose from his chair, his eyes cold. He knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy now knew humanity had returned. And soon, it would learn the full fury of mankind. The wreckage of alien ships floated in silence. Flames still burned in the cold darkness, metal fragments drifting like ghosts of a lost fleet. The lone human vessel, Resolute, moved slowly among the ruins. Its engines hummed, its weapons cooled, but its crew remained tense. Victory was theirs, but they knew it was only the first strike. The galaxy would not forget this. And the galaxy would not forgive. Captain Eric stood at the center of the bridge, his hands behind his back, his gaze fixed on the stars. His face did not show pride or relief. It showed calculation. He knew the battle had been witnessed across countless systems. The alien empires would now see humanity not as extinct, but as dangerous. They would come with more fleets, stronger forces. The real war had just begun. His first officer, a sharp-eyed woman named Rhea, broke the silence. Captain, enemy distress calls were sent before the fleet fell. Reinforcements will come. Maybe entire armadas. Eric nodded. Good. Let them come. The more they bring, the faster the galaxy will understand. Fear spreads quicker than fire. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They all knew what he meant. Humanity had no empire behind them, no allies, no great fleets hidden in secret. They had only this ship, this crew, and their determination. But in human history, that had always been enough. Time and again, humanity had survived against impossible odds. And now, they would prove it once more. Beyond the ruined battlefield, transmissions raced through the stars. Alien leaders argued in their chambers. Some called for caution, others demanded swift retaliation. Old memories stirred, the memory of human wars that had once shaken galaxies. Some wanted to believe this was only one desperate ship, the last remnant of a dying species. But deep down, they feared the truth. Where there was one human ship, there would be more. On the bridge of Resolute, the crew prepared for the next step. Eric ordered scans of the system. Among the debris of alien vessels, they found survivors in escape pods. Rhea turned to the captain. "Do we take prisoners?" she asked. Eric's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then his voice came, low and hard. "Yes. Let them live. Let them carry the story back to their masters. Fear is strongest when it comes from those who survive to tell it." The crew followed his orders, pulling a handful of alien survivors from the wreckage. They were terrified, their strange faces pale and trembling. They expected torture or death. Instead, Eric stood before them and spoke in a calm, sharp voice. "Go back to your people," he said. "Tell them what you saw. Tell them that humanity is not gone. Tell them we will never kneel. And tell them this is only the beginning." The prisoners were released in a shuttle, left to return to their empire. The message was delivered not by words, but by living proof. The news would spread like wildfire. Later, when the crew gathered in the mess hall, the tension finally broke into whispers. They were proud, but also afraid. "How long can we keep fighting?" one asked. "One ship against the galaxy?" Rhea silenced them with a sharp look. "One ship is enough," she said. "It always has been. We are human. That's what the galaxy fears." Eric, overhearing, gave the faintest hint of a smile. He knew Rhea was right. Humanity's strength had never been in numbers. It had always been in spirit, the unyielding will to fight, to endure, to rise again no matter how many times they were struck down. That was their true weapon. As the Resolute left the battlefield, its sensors detected movement. More alien ships were entering the system, drawn by the distress calls. Dozens, maybe hundreds. The crew braced for battle, but Eric raised his hand. "No," he said calmly. "We've made our point here. Now we move." The ship's engines flared, and the Resolute vanished into the dark void, leaving behind only wreckage and fear. Across the galaxy, reactions spread. On one world, an alien council argued through the night. "If humans are truly back," one leader said, "we must unite before it's too late. They fight like no other species. We cannot underestimate them again." On another planet, soldiers whispered nervously, remembering old wars their ancestors had fought against mankind. They had heard stories of human endurance, of soldiers who kept fighting even when wounded, even when hopelessly outnumbered. Now those stories felt real again. But not all feared. Some empires grew greedy, seeing opportunity. "If this is the last human ship," a warlord declared, "we will hunt it down and mount its captain's head as a trophy. The galaxy will cheer us." They did not understand. They did not know what humanity was capable of. They had forgotten the fury that once burned across the stars. They would remember soon enough. Back aboard the Resolute, Captain Eric plotted the next course. His voice echoed through the bridge. "This was the first strike. But it will not be the last. Every empire that once thought us broken will learn the truth. Humanity has returned. And we will show them why we were feared." The crew straightened, their doubts burning away. Their eyes shone with determination. Alone or not, they carried the weight of their species. The galaxy would soon see the cost of underestimating mankind. The stars stretched before them, endless and waiting. And into that vast, watching darkness, the Resolute sailed forward, one ship, one crew, one unstoppable fury. The Resolute traveled through the void like a shadow. Its engines whispered against the silence, leaving no trace but the cold trail of fire in its wake. Behind them, the galaxy shook with fear. Alien councils debated, warlords shouted, and empires argued. Yet, one truth was spreading faster than their words. The humans had returned. Captain Eric sat in his chair, calm but unyielding. His crew worked quietly, each of them carrying the same thought: how long could one ship fight against entire empires? But none of them dared speak it aloud. Eric's presence was iron. His voice was enough to crush doubt. Humanity had survived the shadows for this moment, and he would not allow fear to weaken them. "Captain," Rhea reported, scanning the console. "We've intercepted transmissions. Multiple empires are moving fleets to hunt us. They're calling us terrorists, criminals, even demons." Eric gave a cold smile. "Demons? Good. Let them believe that. Fear will do half our work for us." The words settled into the crew like fire. Humanity had always been underestimated. And now, being hunted by armadas only proved their strength. The galaxy saw them as a threat again, and that meant they were succeeding. But survival meant more than pride. Their supplies were low, their ships scarred from the last battle. They needed resources, and they needed allies. The galaxy believed humans had no friends. Eric intended to change that. He set a course for a remote world on the edge of the Orion Arm long ago. It had been a trading post where humans once walked freely among aliens. Now, it was under the rule of the Valari Dominion, a race known for their arrogance and cruelty. Rumors said the Valari still kept human relics locked away in their vaults, items stolen after the wars. Eric wanted them back. The Resolute descended silently toward the planet. Its hull shimmered against the atmosphere as it broke through clouds. Below, the trading hub glowed with alien lights, towers stretching high like spears of glass and steel. Thousands of species walked the streets, but none expected to see a human. Not anymore. The ship landed outside the city. Disguises were prepared, simple cloaks to hide their features. But even so, the crew knew it was risky. One glimpse of human eyes, and panic would spread. Eric led the way, his steps steady, his presence unshaken. Inside the markets, alien voices filled the air, strange languages blending into a storm of sound. But then, a silence began to follow. Whispers spread like lightning. Some recognized the stance, the shape, the face hidden under the hood. And then came the word, carried on trembling voices. Human. Fear rippled through the crowd. Merchants froze, guards reached for weapons, children were pulled aside. The presence of one human was enough to turn the market into chaos. The Valari guards arrived quickly, their armor shining, their weapons drawn. "You dare walk here?" one shouted, his voice trembling between anger and fear. "Your kind is not welcome. You should not even exist." Eric pulled back his hood. His human eyes burned like steel. The guards stepped back, their courage faltering. He spoke slowly, his voice carrying weight. "We exist. And we remember." The words struck harder than any weapon. For generations, aliens had hoped the memory of humanity would fade. But seeing one alive, standing fearless, was like watching an old nightmare rise from the grave. Eric moved forward. "Take me to your vaults," he ordered. "Show me what you stole from my people." The Valari captain hesitated, but Eric's presence was a force of its own. Reluctantly, they led him through the city, past towering halls and alien banners. At last, they reached the vaults, sealed chambers filled with treasures of conquered species. And there, among the relics, Eric found what he sought. Old human weapons, preserved in glass cases. Books written in Earth's fading languages. A flag, torn but still carrying the colors of humanity. The crew stood in silence. For them, this was not just history, it was proof. Proof that humanity was never erased. Proof that they were not alone. Tears filled some eyes, but Eric's face hardened. He touched the glass, then turned to the Valari. "These do not belong to you," he said. "They belong to us." Without hesitation, he shattered the case. He lifted the old flag, its fabric worn but alive with meaning. Raising it high, he spoke so all could hear. "Humanity does not die. Humanity returns." The words thundered through the hall. Some aliens fled in terror. Others, long oppressed by the Valari, looked on with new hope. For them, the return of humans was not only fear, it was possibility. The Valari guards tried to stop them, but the crew of the Resolute fought with precision. Blasters roared, steel clashed, and in moments the hall was theirs. The relics of humanity were reclaimed. When they returned to the ship, the flag hung in the bridge, a symbol to every crew member. It reminded them who they were fighting for, not just themselves, but for all of humanity. As the Resolute lifted into the sky once more, alien worlds trembled with new rumors. The humans had returned, not only with fire, but with pride. They carried their past with them, and they were ready to carve a future in blood and steel. And across the stars, as leaders and warlords prepared their fleets, whispers spread, the lone human ship has become more than a threat. It has become a symbol. And symbols are harder to kill than ships. The Resolute soared back into the black void, carrying with it more than weapons and crew. Now it carried a symbol. The old human flag, scarred and torn, hung proudly on the bridge wall. Every time the crew saw it, they remembered who they were, and why they fought. The galaxy thought humanity was gone, but now the galaxy would remember their name in fear and fire. Captain Eric stood before the flag in silence. His eyes were sharp, his thoughts darker still. He knew what the flag meant. It was not just a piece of cloth, it was history, it was defiance, it was a promise. Humanity would not vanish. Humanity would rise again. "Captain," Rhea reported from her console, "we're receiving new transmissions. Every empire is talking about us. Some are gathering fleets to hunt us. Others are watching, waiting." Eric's lips curved into a cold smile. "Good. Let them watch. Let them gather their fleets. Fear spreads faster than ships. The crew worked with renewed energy, but beneath their discipline, there was unease. They had seen what was coming. Humanity's return was no longer a whisper, it was a firestorm. The empires would not sit idle. They would come with overwhelming power, determined to crush the lone ship before it became more than a legend. And yet, something strange was happening too. Reports spoke of oppressed worlds, broken colonies, and forgotten species who now spoke the human name with hope instead of fear. To them, the lone human ship was proof that the impossible could happen, that even the strongest empires could be defied. As the Resolute moved through deep space, they intercepted a distress signal. It was weak, fractured by interference, but the words were clear enough: a mining colony under attack, begging for help. The signal came from a sector controlled by the Drax Coalition, a brutal empire known for enslaving weaker races. Rhea studied the transmission. "Captain, it's a trap. The Drax know we're here. They want to lure us in." Eric stared at the flickering signal on the screen. The cries of the miners echoed through the static. He closed his eyes for a moment, then gave his order. "Set a course." The crew looked at him in shock. "Captain," one said carefully, "we can't save everyone. We're one ship." Eric turned, his voice steel. "We are humanity. If we turn away, then we are nothing. We show the galaxy who we are, not only by our fury, but by our defiance. Set the course." The Resolute jumped into the system. What they found was fire and chains. The mining colony floated broken in space, its workers, alien slaves, herded onto Drax warships. The sight was brutal, merciless. The Drax fleet was waiting. Dozens of warships formed a wall of steel around the colony. Their commander, a towering alien with burning red eyes, opened a transmission. His laughter filled the bridge. "Human captain," he growled. "You walked into my jaws. You will not leave. Your bones will hang as trophies on my ship." Eric's face remained calm. "You are mistaken," he replied coldly. "It is you who will not leave." The channel closed, and the stars exploded into war. The Resolute moved like a predator unleashed. Missiles streaked through the void, tearing into the Drax formation. Laser fire rained down, but the human ship twisted through it with impossible speed. Every strike from the Resolute was precise, brutal, and final. But the Drax were many, and their ships were powerful. The Resolute took hit after hit, its shields flaring, its hull trembling. Warning lights screamed across the bridge. Rhea shouted reports, crew members worked frantically, but Eric stood like stone. "Hold the line," he commanded. "Break their teeth." The miners in the colony watched in awe as the lone ship fought against an empire's fleet. Explosions lit the darkness like firestorms. One by one, the Drax ships fell, burning wreckage drifting across the stars. But the Resolute was bleeding. Its armor was torn, its engines strained, its crew exhausted. The Drax commander laughed again, certain of victory. He moved his massive flagship forward, aiming to crush the human vessel with sheer power. Eric waited until the enemy flagship was close, then gave his final command. "All batteries. All torpedoes. Fire." The Resolute unleashed everything it had. A storm of human fury erupted, slamming into the Drax flagship. The alien giant staggered, shields collapsing, armor tearing apart. And then, with a single blinding explosion, the ship was split in two. Silence fell over the battlefield. The surviving Drax ships broke formation, retreating in panic. The miners cheered, their cries echoing across the comms. For them, salvation had come from a legend, a lone human ship. But on the bridge of the Resolute, there was no cheer. The crew looked around at the smoke, the broken panels, the alarms that still screamed. They had won, but the cost was heavy. Their ship was scarred, their supplies low. This was only one battle. More were coming. Eric stood tall, staring at the wreckage of the Drax fleet. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the bridge. "They thought we would fall. They thought numbers would bury us. But humanity is not measured by numbers. We are measured by will. And our will does not break. The flag behind him seemed to burn brighter in the dim light. The crew straightened, their fear turning to steel once again. Far away, across the stars, the story of the battle spread. Some called the human saviors. Others called them devils. But one thing was certain, the galaxy could no longer ignore them. Humanity had returned. And their fury was only growing. The Resolute drifted through the void, its hull scarred, its engines tired, but its spirit unbroken. The battle with the Drax had left deep wounds. Fires had been contained, systems patched, but the ship carried the weight of every strike it had endured. Yet, despite the damage, the crew stood taller than ever. They had saved the miners. They had struck fear into another empire. And across the galaxy, the legend of the lone human ship burned brighter. In the mess hall, the crew gathered around worn tables, their meals barely touched. They spoke in hushed voices. Some replayed the battle in their minds, remembering the explosions, the chaos, the way their ship had stood against overwhelming odds. Others thought of the miners' cheers, the hope in their voices when they realized a human ship had come to their aid. "They're calling us heroes," one crewman whispered. Rhea, always sharp, shook her head. "Heroes don't win wars. Fear does. And fear is spreading." Her words were true. In the shadows of countless worlds, whispers spread like wildfire. Species oppressed by empires began to hope. Soldiers began to doubt. Leaders began to panic. Everywhere, the same words were spoken: the humans have returned. On the bridge, Captain Eric stared at the human flag hanging on the wall. It swayed gently with the ship's hum, a symbol of everything they carried. His face was hard, his mind heavier still. He knew what the galaxy was planning. They would no longer send fleets in ones and twos. They would unite. Humanity had always been dangerous when underestimated. This time, they would throw their full weight against him. "Captain," Rhea reported, her voice cutting into the silence. "We've intercepted coded transmissions. Multiple empires are calling for an alliance. They want to hunt us together." Eric turned slowly, his eyes cold but calm. "Good. Let them come together. It will save us the trouble of hunting them one by one." Rhea frowned. "We can't fight them all. Not like this. Not with one ship." Eric walked to the viewport, staring into the endless dark. "We don't need to fight them all. We need to remind them of what one human can do. That is enough." The crew felt the weight of his words. Humanity's strength had never been in numbers, but in will. Yet they knew the coming storm would test even that. Days later, their course took them to the ruins of an old human outpost, a station abandoned long ago after the wars. It drifted broken and silent, a skeleton against the stars. The Resolute docked, its crew moving cautiously through the dark corridors. Dust hung in the air, and broken banners of Earth lay torn across the floor. Inside, they found relics, old weapons, shattered machines, forgotten journals. The walls told stories of those who had once held the line, humans who fought until the last breath. The crew walked in silence, their footsteps echoing like ghosts. For them, this place was not just history, it was a reminder of the price their people had paid. Rhea touched the broken wall, her voice quiet. "So many died here, and yet they never surrendered." Eric's voice was like stone. "That is humanity. We do not break. We endure." Among the ruins, they discovered something unexpected, an encrypted signal, still alive after all these years. It carried a message from the past, a call sent by human survivors during the final days of the war. The crew worked to decode it, their hands shaking with anticipation. When the message finally played, a voice filled the station. "To any human who hears this, we are not gone. We are scattered, but we endure. Do not forget who you are. Do not forget what we were. One day, we will rise again." The voice faded, leaving silence. The crew stood frozen, their eyes burning with emotion. For a moment, it felt as if the past itself had spoken directly to them. Eric's jaw tightened. They endured. So will we. And when the galaxy believes us finished, we rise. The Resolute left the ruins, but the message remained etched in every heart. They were not just fighting for survival. They were carrying the legacy of every human who had refused to kneel. But the galaxy was not idle. Armadas were gathering, alliances forming. The empires that once fought each other now prepared to stand side by side. Humanity had given them one common enemy. Reports spoke of a massive fleet being built, designed for one purpose only: to destroy the Resolute and erase humanity forever. On the bridge, Rhea handed the captain the latest intel. They're calling it the Unity Fleet. Hundreds of ships, maybe more. All for us. The crew waited for Eric's reaction. Would he finally show doubt? Would he speak of retreat? But his eyes hardened, his voice sharper than steel. Then let them come, he said. They think we are one ship. They are wrong. We are every human who ever fought, every human who ever bled, every human who refused to die. They will not face a ship. They will face our fury. The crew straightened, their fear melting into resolve. The galaxy believed it was uniting to end humanity. But in truth, it was uniting to face something far worse, a force that could not be broken, a spirit that could not be killed. The Resolute turned its course, engines burning brighter. Ahead lay the storm of empires, the Unity Fleet, and the greatest battle yet. And as the stars stretched before them, one truth echoed in every heart aboard: humanity was not just back. Humanity was unstoppable. The galaxy was no longer calm. Entire empires that once fought each other now prepared side by side. For centuries, they had been divided, locked in rivalry and greed. But the return of humanity had changed everything. Now they had a common enemy. They called their new armada the Unity Fleet, and it stretched across the stars like a wall of steel. Hundreds of warships, dreadnoughts, carriers and cruisers, all forged with one goal: the destruction of the lone human ship. From the bridge of the Resolute, the crew watched intercepted transmissions of the gathering fleet. Alien commanders spoke of wiping humanity from history forever. They mocked the idea that one ship could stand against so many. Yet, beneath their laughter, there was fear. They remembered the old wars. They remembered what one human could do. Rhea leaned forward over her console, her eyes sharp. Captain, it's massive. More ships than we've ever faced. If they find us, it will be over in minutes. Captain Eric did not flinch. His gaze remained fixed on the stars, his voice calm but edged with iron. No. Not minutes. We will make them bleed for every second. And in those seconds, the galaxy will see who we are. The crew exchanged glances. They were tired, their ship battered, their supplies low. Yet, none of them turned away. They knew they were part of something larger than themselves. They were carrying the weight of an entire species. Days later, the Resolute entered a barren system, its suns weak and its planets dead. They had chosen this place carefully. The empty void offered no cover, no escape. But it also offered something else: clarity. Here, they would face the Unity Fleet head-on. Here, the galaxy would witness what humanity truly was. As they waited, the crew prepared in silence. Weapons were armed, shields reinforced, engines primed. Old systems were patched together with desperate hands. Every crew member knew the truth: this battle could be their last. Yet not one voice spoke of retreat. Rhea stood by Eric's side. Her voice was quiet, but steady. Even if we fall, they'll remember. Eric's eyes did not leave the stars. We won't fall. We can't. Not while the galaxy watches. And then, the darkness lit up. The Unity Fleet arrived. One ship, then 10, then hundreds, appearing in flashes of light until the void was filled with steel. Their formation stretched farther than the eye could see, their weapons gleaming like suns. It was an empire of warships, united for one purpose: to kill a single human vessel. A transmission opened. The voice of the alien commander boomed across the comms. Human ship Resolute. You are surrounded. You cannot win. Surrender, and perhaps we will let your crew live. The crew turned to their captain. They knew what he would say, but they waited for his words all the same. Eric stood tall, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Tell them this, he said. We are humanity. We do not surrender. If they want us, let them come and take us. The message was sent. And then, the void exploded into war. The Unity fleet unleashed its fury. Beams of light, swarms of missiles, entire barges of plasma fire rained down upon the Resolute. The small human ship vanished inside a storm of fire. To the galaxy watching, it seemed certain that the legend was about to end. But then the storm parted, and the Resolute was still there. Shields burned, armor cracked, but it endured. And it struck back. The human vessel moved like no other ship in the void. It twisted through enemy lines, striking where the fleet was weakest, turning its small size into an advantage. Every volley it unleashed tore through ships far larger than itself. Alien dreadnoughts split apart, carriers burned, cruisers fell in flames. The crew fought with a fury no alien could match. Every strike they made carried centuries of anger, every shot fired carried the memory of their fallen. They knew they were outnumbered 100 to 1, but it did not matter. They were human. The battle raged for hours. The Resolute was bleeding, its hull torn open in places, fires raging inside. Crew members fell, but others stepped in without hesitation. The ship itself seemed alive with will, refusing to die. At the heart of the storm, Eric stood unshaken. His voice echoed through the bridge. Hold. Every second we stand is another second the galaxy remembers who we are. And the galaxy was watching. Across 1,000 worlds, beings crowded around screens and transmissions, their eyes wide with disbelief. They saw the impossible, one human ship standing against the united power of empires. They saw courage, fury, and defiance unlike anything else in the stars. And deep inside, something stirred. For the oppressed, it was hope. For the rulers, it was fear. The Unity fleet pressed harder, throwing everything into the fight. But still, the Resolute fought back. Wreckage of alien ships drifted across the void, burning against the black. The humans had become more than warriors, they had become a symbol. By the end of the third hour, the alien commander screamed in rage. His fleets had lost more ships than they could count, morale was breaking, and still the lone human ship refused to fall. This is madness, the commander shouted. They should be dead. But madness was humanity's strength. On the bridge of the Resolute, Eric looked at his crew, his voice low but filled with fire. This is not just a battle. This is our message. They will know us. They will fear us. They will never forget us. And as the ship plunged back into the storm of fire, the galaxy realized the truth. Humanity was not only back. Humanity was eternal. The void burned with the fury of war. The Unity fleet, hundreds of ships from across the galaxy, surrounded the lone human vessel. For hours they had poured fire into it, enough to shatter entire planets. Yet, impossibly, the Resolute still fought. Its hull was cracked, smoke filled its corridors, and wounded crew struggled at their stations. Sparks rained from broken panels, alarms screamed without end. But still the ship moved. Still it struck. And with every alien vessel that fell, the galaxy's fear grew deeper. On the bridge, Captain Eric stood like stone. His uniform was torn, blood marked his face, but his eyes burned with iron will. Around him, the crew worked with desperate precision. Some were wounded, but none abandoned their posts. Humanity did not kneel. Ria's voice cut through the chaos. Captain, shields are almost gone. We can't take another volley. Eric's answer was calm, steady, unyielding. Then we fight without shields. The words carried like fire through the crew. They had no illusions. This battle might be their last. But if they were to fall, they would fall in a blaze so bright the galaxy would never forget it. The alien commander, watching from his flagship, was furious. Enough. End this ship. End them now. The Unity fleet closed in, tightening the noose. 1,000 weapons locked onto the Resolute. The next barrage would be final. But Eric was ready. Arm the last warheads, he ordered. His voice was low, but it cut through the bridge like thunder. Rhea hesitated, her eyes widening. Captain, if we fire those, the core won't survive. Eric met her gaze, his eyes steel. I know. The crew froze. They understood now. The Resolute was not just going to fight. It was going to burn so brightly that no one could ever erase its memory. Humanity's final strike would be carved into the stars themselves. With trembling hands, the crew armed the warheads, ancient human weapons built not for survival, but for vengeance. The alien fleet fired first. Beams of fire, missiles of plasma, storms of destruction swallowed the Resolute. The ship shook, tearing apart piece by piece. Panels exploded, crew were thrown from their stations. Still, Eric did not move. Target their core ships, he commanded. The ones that hold them together. Cut out the heart, and the beast dies. The Resolute roared back. Its final volley tore through the void, striking the alien flagships. One, then another, then a third exploded in blazing fire, their wreckage scattering across the battlefield. The Unity fleet faltered, its perfect formation breaking in panic. On worlds across the galaxy, billions watched in silence. They saw the impossible, one broken human ship bringing an entire armada to its knees. For the weak and the oppressed, it was hope. For the rulers, it was terror. Inside the Resolute, systems failed one by one. Fires spread. The ship groaned under the weight of its wounds. But the crew did not stop. They fought until their consoles went dark, until their weapons were gone, until all that was left was the burning will of humanity. Finally, with the last of its strength, the Resolute charged. Engines flared, broken but fierce. The ship hurled itself straight into the heart of the Unity fleet. Captain! Rhea shouted, tears burning in her eyes. This will kill us all. Eric's voice was calm, almost gentle. No. This will make us eternal. The warheads detonated. The void turned to fire. A storm of light tore through the Unity fleet, ripping ships apart, scattering the armada into chaos. Entire dreadnoughts split like glass, carriers crumbled, cruisers vanished in flames. The explosion burned so bright it could be seen from worlds light years away. And at its center, the Resolute was gone. Silence fell. The Unity fleet, once so mighty, was shattered. Survivors fled in panic, their fleets broken, their courage crushed. The lone human ship was destroyed, but its fury had destroyed far more. Across the galaxy, the story spread. They spoke of the ship that fought an empire of empires, the ship that refused to kneel, the ship that burned brighter than the stars. They spoke of humanity, not as weak, not as extinct, but as eternal. On countless worlds, whispers became vows. If one ship could do this, what if more still live? And deep inside, every ruler, every commander, every soldier felt the same fear. What if the humans are not gone? What if the Resolute was only the beginning? The galaxy would never sleep easy again. Humanity had reminded them of a truth carved in blood and fire. Humans never stop. Humans never bow. Humans never die.